we'll get into some of that in a second, but you have mentioned the Garcia incident. To help give a little background, can you explain a little bit more of that, what that entailed and how he was involved in that? And
well, I can, because we were together. Christopher and I had come, we had gone to his brother's, one of his brothers. We had just come back, and it was Christopher and I. And we were in Christopher's car, and Christopher said he wanted to go to Garcias. He said, Mom, let's stop and get something to eat at Garcias. And I said, well, why don't you, it's just right over here. I said, why don't you go get something, take out, and then just come back home. So he dropped me off, and he went. And while he's in Garcias, he saw a gentleman with a gun in a holster, whatever those side holsters are called. So, but I do think that Christopher felt that the patrons of the restaurant were in danger because of this individual with the gun. Mm-hmm. So he felt it was his duty to, address the situation. So he went up to the individual with the gun, and he said he was with the DEA, and the guy needed to give him his gun. So the guy gave him the gun, and Christopher took out the clip from the gun, handed it to the manager of the store. But then I'm not sure at what point then the individual and Christopher who start kind of going to fisticuffs. I don't know when that happened. But first thing Christopher does, take the gun, take the clip out, give it to the manager, and then there is a scuffle that ensues, and I'm not really sure what precipitated the scuffle. Police are called, APD arrives, and they seem to handle the situation quite
appropriately.
That's a good word. But he does say to the officers when they get there that he is suffering from schizophrenia, and that's part of the police report. Mm-hmm. So, you had two officers who then came to our home and were asking us questions. That's kind of an interesting interview as well. It wasn't the two officers that handled the scene, it was two other officers. And maybe it's a little bit to how APD operates, because these gentlemen didn't tell us what happened. They were coming with more questions, more about Christopher and, his well-being, how was he today, and just kind of asking leading questions. And then they wanted to know if Christopher owned any guns, and we said, no, Christopher doesn't own any guns. Well, so the thing that's misleading is, Stephen and I felt for a few minutes that Christopher must have gotten access to a gun. Well, he never had a gun. But it was interesting how APD laid out that whole interview process with us. So then Stephen explained he's a hunter. And so then they wanted to see Stephen's guns. So he showed them his guns. They went up to Christopher's room and wanted to see his room. And they told us he was at the North Valley substation, North Area substation, but we couldn't see him. It was kind of bizarre, but in that whole episode, Stephen did tell the officers that he's already been identified as a result of being hospitalized in 2003, and please let us know anytime there's any situation involving law enforcement, please call us. So that was already noted, but those officers who shot him did say that they did not do any homework on his case.
Mm-hmm. But yet that's an example of not only of him showing a concern of violence to the community, as opposed to being a violent threat to the community. Here's someone who's concerned about that, but is also someone who the police have now thoroughly engaged with, who's very open and willing to be cooperative in all of the past, up until this one day, all of the past experiences. So that's very interesting.